Hello, everyone. Welcome back for another week of Growing with my fellow growers. I'm your host, Jack Greenstock, joined as always by an amazing panelist, Spartan Grown, and I'm going to pass it over to him to introduce himself.
Thank you, Jack. I am Spartan Grown. You can find me on Instagram at Spartan Grown, all one word with no spaces. Or if you don't have Instagram, you can shoot me a message or an email at spartangrown at spartangrown at gmail.com or russ at gmlarmy.com. And I could answer your growing or all your growing and LED questions, hopefully.
We'll see if we get any of those tonight. I titled the show Jack and Spartan Answer All Your Questions. And so
Ooh,
that's going to be the goal tonight. A little bit of rapid fire
I like it. Answer your questions. We don't promise the correct answer. We just promise an answer.
and answer from either of us. So not getting our hopes up too high, but at least something I promise I can deliver upon. I will also give a small behind the scenes update, and hopefully you all will notice it with my connection because I've been noticing the last few weeks my connection was a little bit choppy, and not that it was unbearable, but I definitely cut in and out at a couple points. So I'm going old school, and I've got a 25-foot Ethernet cord that's now running from my computer over to the router, so that way I don't have to rely. 'Cause I did a speed test, and it was 10 times slower using the Wi-Fi with my laptop than it was to run it with the cord. So I'm gonna go with the cord, and hopefully it holds up. But yeah, hopefully we get some
Nice.
questions. Everybody is saying cheers. We've got lots of cool people in the chat right now, but looking forward to tonight. Happy Spartan showed up. I thought it was gonna be just Jack answering questions here for a bit. And if there's no questions, then that'd be even more
Oh,
devastating. Just me hanging out. Probably do an open panel then at that point. But uh, you never know. Brandon Rust might pop in. Tao said he's not going to make it tonight, as well as Noah the Grower. So won't be holding my breath on that. But we will probably open up the panel at the 2 hour or the halfway point, 1 hour into the show for the second hour. And till then, hopefully we get some grow questions. And maybe up to that point, you could give us some updates on how things are going over there in your garden and at the Tricom Forge.
yeah, absolutely. At the Trichome Forge, we've just harvested the last of the flower room, flower room one, and those were the GMO cookies. And so they're all fresh frozen harvest. We've changed how we're doing our fresh frozen harvest. We're not real happy with returns so much, so we're trying to improve our harvest techniques and really break down the buds more. Where before we weren't really concentrating on that. So we know this is going to help. So we're doing that. This will be the first time doing that. So it's going to be interesting to see the results. That's all in the freezer. Actually, most of that, the first part of that harvest cycle that had the what did it had? It had, oh, I'm blanking now on the other two strains that we had in there, but those are already gone. But I had the bliss bud that I grew at home. I did a light of bliss bud. I threw on an extra light in the flower room and just did a because I wanted to see how it ran. So that's in there, and that's being ran this weekend by our processor, who doesn't want to be named, but shout out to him anyway. And so that's gonna be cool. That's gonna be really cool to get some bliss, but it's never been run into concentrate. So I'm really hopeful that it's gonna be a good yield there. So it's something that we can run at the Trichome Forge. And then at home, I'm doing a new an experiment, which is cool because I haven't run salts at home in a long ass time. But Grandmaster Level's got his own nutrients that he wants me to try out. So he sent some to the warehouse because I'll be breaking it. They're like in big 25-pound bags. But to break it down into samples to send out to other people too. But right now I'm trying it out. I'm just doing a DWC old school DWC bucket. Literally it's like a 5-gallon bucket with the little side, sight tube so you can see how full it is and the basket top. You just fill it with the hydrogen pellets.
Classic.
Yeah, exactly. It's a couple air
It
stones in the
still
bottom.
works, though.
Absolutely. I'm not even going crazy with it. So I got a new pH probe for my Blue Lab. The beauty about that Blue Lab meter is I can just buy new probes. I don't have to buy a whole new. And so I got that and here we go, right? So and the beauty of his nutrient line is it's like there's three total things. There's a base, and there's a veg, and there's a bloom. So you use the base all the way through, and then you use veg and veg, and you use bloom and bloom. You use equal parts. So it's dry nutrient. And So that's what I did. So I just mixed the first thing, my first, because I had a Mac 1, so I figured I'm going to run something I've run a lot of. And I had a Mac 1 in the cloner, so I just let it stay in the cloner for a little extra long to get some longer roots. Put it in there, loaded it up with hydrogen, and then I mixed up that bucket full of, I think it held like a little over 4 gallons or something. And I just started out with like the small scoop I had was like a quarter teaspoon, I believe it was, of each, and that got me to a point 0.3 EC. I'm like, that's a little bit low. And so I eyeballed half of that quarter teaspoon, so it's like an eighth, I suppose. And that got me up to like zero point 0.4, zero point 0.5 EC. So I'm like, all right, I'm good with that. And then the very next day, that one leaf had like tip burn on it. All the rest looked good. And it's been in there for about 3, 4 days. I haven't changed the water or anything. I've been just adjusting for pH and that's it. And it's looking good. It's looking good so far. So I love the ease of just like, oh, I can just fucking do half and just do this equal parts. Makes it pretty easy. Especially once it gets big and starts, taking more EC, then I can probably just go by weight, be more exact than just scoops. But it's also cool that it's dry nutrient. You can just get what I did was like got a 5 gallon bucket and poured that 25-pound bag or whatever the fucking pound bag it was into that 5 gallon bucket with a lid. You know what I mean? Put a lid on it, and that's gonna stay dry for a long ass time and be good for a long ass time. So I don't know. There's a lot of benefits to dry nutrients. So I'm excited to see
Easy
how it
to
goes.
store,
Yeah, super easy to store.
especially just like a three part like that. You could have, like you said, just a couple buckets at some point, three, and then you're pretty much set for several probably years of growing at that point, depending on how large the garden is. But I have seen lots of different dry powdered nutrients from there's whole lots of different ones, but Floraflex to Athena to uh Jack's 321 and Psycho, I think, is another one. So it's there's a lot of different ones out there,
Million of
and
them
it's
out there.
interesting to see. I think they're going for the user ease of use, where it's just like this is easy to use, three parts, equal parts. We'll see what the cost ends up being. So they might be going for the budget front, or maybe medium or top tier, who knows? But it's always interesting to see new people come to market. I always got to shout out Brian 420 PM, who pretty much every quarter goes through and evaluates every single nutrient. And they'll say, like, here's how many cents per gallon it costs to run this line. And here's the NPK breakdown of that line and what you're getting. So shout out Brian 420 PM. Great person to follow on Instagram if you are curious about that kind of stuff, because I find this stuff fascinating. And I think it's good to hold each other honest. And speaking of holding each other honest, because I haven't seen any questions other than people just kind of chatting and saying hello. Um, GML, I think, is kind of at the center of an expose recently in the industry. Formerly, I think, well-respected, well-trusted individual with Micro Lights, Shane, had put out some light that I guess was third-party tested by GML. And I haven't even actually watched the review, but I've seen Shane's like apologies and like explanation videos, which popped up, and I was like, this is a definitely going to be a topic of conversation in the community. So I figured since you are, and maybe you're partial slash biased because you work for Grandmaster level lighting or whatever. However, I don't think integrated spheres lie, and I don't think testing data was made up per se. But maybe you could give your guys' side of the story, or at least however you perceive it, if you're able to make a statement. Otherwise, you could
Yeah.
say, "Hey, I'm not going to comment."
No, I'm happy to comment. I
Mhm.
don't think there's any um and really like I don't have all of the information memorized. Thomas GML, he would be the one to talk to for all of that. Um but he did just put up a show that we did last night too, that I think he left up on his channel that it goes into like the actual screenshots and stuff if you want to see it. But I'll go to the fast forward Cliff Notes version. And Cliff Notes version is that GML first worked with Shane because Shane was a tester. He would test grow lights because most grow light companies, at least the bigger ones, will use a sphere testing, which is in the best possible conditions. Nobody grows in those conditions. So then it's actually kind of now become another hole in the YouTube scene, honestly. So if people are listening, they can and they're interested in this kind of thing, this might be something to invest in a really good light meter and start doing something like this. But like our good friend there, Dr. MJ Coco did with, just testing like a map, a par map, like hang it from a certain distance, get it and try to simulate a grow environment, whether a tent or whatever, and just take some numbers so people have references and can compare lights because not everybody can afford a meter, right? They're all expensive. They're all really expensive. So, Shane from Micro was one of those people. He was testing that. He still does. It's not like he doesn't do it anymore. But did those testing, and that's how GML Thomas first met him and ran across him because he reached out to him to test some lights from GML, and they ended up working together there, and eventually butting heads
I'll
because
say this, GML's lights tested at the top. I've been watching the micro testing for years. It fascinates me because although he's biased because he sells lights himself, he's doing exactly what Dr. MJ Coco is doing. Dr. MJ is not selling any lights. It's the same kind of testing rig. So when I saw him putting lights above micro on his testing, like the GML lights up here and like micro lights down here, and then there's like HPS and CMH and whatever, he tested everything and gave this were the results that I got kind of thing. So I just wanted to throw that out there that it seems like from the outside looking in, although GML probably sent him a light, maybe for free, who knows what the deal is or whatever. But
I know what it
you guys
was.
had a
It's
few lights
not.
tested.
Yeah, not only were they sent lights for free, you had to pay, and it was thousands. It wasn't cheap. He didn't have a cheap fee, so yeah, he was getting paid for his service. It wasn't a free thing, and I believe he kept the light. I'm not 100% sure on that, so don't quote me on the light.
And I think he sells the lights too that he tests. So he's probably making a pretty good buck on those at the back end.
But he's doing a service for the community as long as he's reporting the right data and all that. And I'm not saying he hasn't done things like that. You know what I mean? He's put good data out or interviewed, great people. I'm not taking any of that away from him. I disagree with him on a lot of things he said recently, especially about spectrums not mattering or far red not being something to worry about, all those things. But
Or not wearing grow glasses.
we're
What the
not
fuck?
wearing grow glasses. But
When I called him on it, he's like, yeah, whatever. That was basically his response. It wasn't like, oh, I have it on low intensity and I'm only, on video. I don't wear it or something. It was just like, nah, I'm not worried about it. I was like, okay.
yeah. So but long story short, that eventually there's discrepancy in his test numbers and what our spear results were showing, what we should be seeing. And him and GML had a falling out with because he got to the point where GML bought him a different par meter to use. It was hilarious. Anyhow, they had a falling out, so GML pretty much stopped really communicating with him and really being on his radar, really paying much attention to him. But then um, there was a third party, so another influencer on I believe Instagram is where the most prevalent, started slandering GML, just the usual BS claims. Oh, they're only white label lights. You can get them from this other place, and you're paying markups. They're just throwing their name. They don't design them. That was the most funny
I
thing.
saw some of that. I heard some of that going
And
around.
like I literally fucking our designer and engineer is his father-in-law. So it's like not only do we have our own, engineer who does this, it's like an intimate connection like that. But anyhow, just
Very
this
much like in-house.
yeah, silliness. And so then shortly after he started, being slanderous and stuff like that toward us, um Migro offered him I don't know if he offered anything, but he started getting a code at Migro, and he had Migro lights. So you make your own conclusions there. And so that kind of irritated GML. He told me himself. And then shortly after that, a customer reached out to him. This is what spearheaded the whole thing. A Migro customer reached out to him, or potential. They were reaching out to Migro, and I don't know if I was talking to Shane directly or who answers the emails. So to be fair, it was an email that was sent at first, and then they went to social media after that. But long story short, they started asking questions about the claims on the web page because what the claims were saying as far as the hardware was concerned and the low price, it was hard to believe it, too good to be true kind of a thing. So when they were asked specifically, like what diodes are you using, and they started getting ghosted. They started not getting answers back. And so uh that raised kind of a red flag. And so they reached out to GML to try to get information because he obviously knows a thing or two about, LEDs. He helps design them. And so he looked at the web page and he started looking at the specs and everything. He goes, you know what, this does not make sense. And he does kind of have a bone to grind with him for sure. And so he said, you know what, I'm just going to buy one of the lights and send it off for testing. So he sent it off to Light. So he bought one of the newest, not he bought his newest light, the one that was in question. Specifically, they're asking about EvoMint white diodes. The claim was using Osram diodes for the reds, and it was claiming 3% far red, and it was showing a spectrum chart that was super full that was actually reflected those claims. Those were the main claims that were false. And so it was sent the light was sent brand new right to Light Laboratory. Light Laboratory tested it for us, and Light Laboratory showed a huge discrepancy in the efficiency, which but still fell within their what do you call it? Range of fault. I forget the
Like
name.
plus or minus 5% or 10%,
Yes,
like
yeah,
within normal
yeah.
variance.
So we wanted to make sure there wasn't a mistake there. So we took it from there and sent it to China to have it tested there as well in our sphere at our manufacturer. And everything matched up with Light Lab except for the efficiency. Our sphere was saying that the efficiency was closer to what he was claiming. So we'll give him the benefit of the doubt and say that's probably correct. It was a mistake with their whatever within their margin of error. That's what I was trying to think of. It was just skewed. So
With some
but we
equipment, there's tolerances and stuff like that is not uncommon. Just
for
like the same
sure.
reason THC testing is like a little bit skewable and things like that.
Yeah. And And at our manufacturer, we have a way where we can test each individual diode as well. And that's what we really were interested in doing. Not so much the sphere test, but to see what each diode was, right? You can light each one up. And if you're lighting up only one diode, you can take measurements of that and get the spectrum and figure out, okay, what diodes are these? And so after measuring all the things, I'm trying to go fast. After measuring all the things, there was no EvoMint diodes because there's a specific wavelength that they have, and that's a 437 nanometers instead of the four is it 440 or 460, whatever, but it's a 437.
Right.
So it specifically stands out. And there was none on there. So then they got to looking at the red diodes on the board, which were claimed to be Osram diodes, which we've been working with Osram or Austin. We've been working with them for a long time and still do. Well, we're switching over to LED Star. But we know the size, like the physical, you look at the diode, we know the physical size, and the physical size of the diodes on the micro fixture looked a little off. And once they went and measured it, come to find out they were a little off. So it wasn't even the right size. And then come to find out they weren't Osram diodes at all. When we from the sphere test, we also noticed that there wasn't the far red that was claimed. The claimed 3%, it came in a little lower, like 1.5 or 1.2, something like that, about half as much. So JML um, put a video out because trying to contact Micro, like the customer's getting ghosted and comments are getting deleted, and then you're getting banned. GML gets banned because of his previous beef with him. So he can't get through to him. And then people even from, that are fans of GML, like through our Discord or wherever, try to reach out, they'll get banned if they mention GML because of the bad blood. So GML just put up a video. It's like, this is the truth of it, guys. This is what's in that new fixture. Now the sad thing is people that bought this fixture thinking they're getting one thing and they're not getting what was promised. Well, Shane had seen the video and he put up his own video as a response. And in that video, he basically admits that it's true. None of those diodes are what they said they are. But he says what they are. The red was one I hadn't heard of. Honglai was the red diode. The Samsung diodes were Samsung diodes, but they just went to Evo Mint White. And and he agreed that the far reds were lower. He corrected that on his webpage. He corrected the the spectral charts. His new spectral chart is way different. Like it looks like a greenhouse spectrum. It's got the blue and red peak and really nothing in between. Um, so of course there's some people upset about that. His his response was that he was obviously sorry that he fucked up and that he was going to change the specs on the website and he was sorry. But he said that it was because they were just old graphics, old stuff from his, was his website wasn't updated. The problem is that he didn't have a fixture before that anyone can show us that had an Evo Mint White diode in it. So he wouldn't have had that uploaded to his web page previously for any reason. He didn't even claim them. He had videos out that you can go and see where he said Evo Mint White diodes weren't worth the money. That he wasn't going to put them in his fixtures. Um, yeah, so that doesn't sit well with me, you know. But it is what it is. Um, and people can take it how they take it. But I just the biggest people that my heart goes out to is the people who got something that they thought they got one thing and they got something else. And I'm not saying that it won't grow cannabis or you know what I mean. It might be perfectly fine. It's just not, if you go out excited about getting you know, the newest vehicle out there with a whatever a big truck with a Hemi engine in it, and you buy it and it's just some standard run of the day V8, you're gonna be a little upset.
It's like they make these Lamborghini body kits and they put them into like Toyotas and Fieros or whatever, or on top of like a Toyota body or Fiero body. It's like even if they got that Toyota engine so souped up that it was the same horsepower and same torque, once you found out that it like wasn't the actual Lambo or Ferrari or whatever it was spoofing, you're going to be pretty upset about it because obviously the value is not the same. So honesty and deception in marketing are important things to be clear about. And that's why I'm always very descriptive with all my things that I list ever anywhere if I ever sell anything. But I will
And there could
say
be honest mistakes for sure. And
it could have been.
maybe it's something like I paid somebody else to do my website and they fucked it up. You know what I mean? But I mean, I don't know, but don't come out with another lie. Come clean. Say whatever the truth is, but the truth isn't. It was already on the website for some certain reason. Because okay,
I'll
but
say this
what light was it for?
once you start, I guess when I've lost my trust in somebody, it's really hard to gain back, like extremely, if at all possible. So this is definitely poked a hole in that trust bubble there. I will say I haven't supported other than maybe just mentioning them on the podcast in terms of being a tester. I've never really promoted their lights. I've never purchased any of their lights. And not that I have anything against them. I have seen people buy it and grow good cannabis with them. And from what it sounds like you said, the efficiency testing actually lined up with what they claimed. So if they would have just been honest about what diodes they used to get there, then they would have been fine. And so it's like word for the wise people, be honest up
The counter
front with how you
argument,
got there.
yeah, and the counter argument is, and I saw someone make a comment about it, and I was like, that is a good point. The counter argument is that the people that are shopping lights are researching, all right, what do I got to know what's a good light? Oh, what's the hot diode? Oh, it's this Evo Mint White diode. And you search Evo Mint White diode, and that pops up. And do manufacturers know that? Yep. Would that be if you're gonna lie about something, what are you gonna say you have? The best thing? Yep.
I'm not gonna pretend that he's the first one in the LED industry to do it. If you've ever looked at lights on Amazon in the last like 2 decades, they
Yeah.
always lie. They'll say 10 million lumens or a billion, whatever. How they'll lie about the wattage. They'll put like 4,000 watts and then it'll be like equivalent and then it'll be like 100-watt light, right?
Well,
So
that's
they're like,
a
this thing's gonna replace 4,000 watt lights or whatever, and then it ends up being like a 200-watt light. They can't replace any of that.
it's a real problem in cannabis specifically, and that's just knowing about all the equipment, man. That's a big learning curve. It was the lighting was a huge one for me, and the only thing that got me to give a damn enough to actually learn it was when I started working with a lighting company, because before I was just like, whatever, the shit I've got right here is working, you know what I mean? And I didn't really even have a meter to measure light or anything. Um, but to me, I think to elevate your game as a grower, a home grower, a commercial grower, if you can set some time aside to learn different parts of the grow where you're weak, like maybe lighting knowledge or HVAC or the million things that come up in a grow that maybe you shy away from just because you don't have the knowledge. Try to address that because it could be a handicap. For real, like when you go to buy a light, um, having a little bit of knowledge about it can go a long way to saving you money and getting longevity out of a light. I mean, look at the warranties, they're all over the place. There's some warranties that won't even cover, they'll cover certain parts of it, or is it a full warranty, or does it cover shipping? Or there's so much fine print and different things to look at. It can be mind-boggling before you even get to the specs of a light.
It is certainly one of the things I think that can be, it's one of those weird things because it's like you go from knowing nothing at all to like you learn a bunch where like you can almost feel like there's like the Dunning-Kruger effect where you almost feel like an expert and then you
Yeah.
realize like you actually know nothing. But ultimately like you can learn my dad used to say enough to be dangerous and he meant that just meaning like enough to kind of talk shop and you're able to get in there with actual professionals who know what they're talking about and you're saying the right words and color spectrums. Like I'm not a light expert by any means, but I could tell you that 5,000 Kelvin is a lot bluer than 3,000 Kelvin. Just things that I've memorized throughout like spectrum. 3,500 is like a little bit warmer than 3,000 and or colder, I should say. And so like just learning the temperatures and there was a lot of like
And knowing those
Cree or
effects.
CRI was one that I was interested in for a while. I feel like not as important.
Knowing those
Right.
effects too, like the
So
blue, like
each
what does
thing,
blue give me? What does red give me? When is a good time to use that? That really could help you with spectrum tuning right there, and you don't really have to give a damn after that. If you understand the point of changing the spectrum anyway, um, you're leaps and bounds above the average grower. And that's easy now. That's like we all kind of know already from the early studies from my favorite university in the entire world, Michigan State University. And that's blue light is going to keep the plant more compact, tighter internode spacing, those kinds of things. It's also super useful. In addition to full spectrum light, adding a little bit of blue into the flowering stage can push cannabinoids, especially late in flower, as a finishing effect. Red light is nice early on in veg because it helps in rooting, but it can cause excessive stretching. So you got to back off of it and do a really blue heavy spectrum in veg. As you approach flower, I like to maybe bring in more full spectrum, and then you can switch to flower. I like the reds. I like to back them off a little bit during the growth period in the first bolt of flower to kind of suppress that stretch because I usually grow in some height restricted areas, or I want to get tighter internode spacing, and then bring in the heavy reds after the danger of that stretch is over and fatten up the buds with those reds. And then maybe last week, 2 weeks, play with dropping some reds out and adding the blues back to finish it up. And that's kind of like a basic strategy you can play with when it comes to spectrum tuning. And you can do that with this has been my soapbox lately. You can do that with what you have now and just add that a blue booster bar or a red booster bar or whatever you're missing. Um, if you have a flowering light, chances are it's a red heavy spectrum. So just get a blue booster bar, maybe two blue booster bars, and add that blue and maybe dim the main light, a little bit, that red heavy spectrum, dim it down a little bit, add two booster bars and rock a blue heavy spectrum for the first couple of weeks. Take them out of there for the bulking period and then throw them back in at the end. You can still do that with just booster bars. LEDs are awesome to be able to just have these little, these little, I call them lightsabers.
They really connect like that, and you can pop them in, swap them out, have them on separate timers, run them for only partial parts of the day, and things like that, and try and get more of those effects that you're looking for. I typically suggest that people grow under whatever light they have, get familiar with the few cultivars, and see is it too leggy, is it too broadleaf and too squat? Like, is your spectrum too blue or too red? Is it somewhere in the middle? Is it effective? And then you can really start to play with it. Like, okay, I'm overgrowing my space a lot. Maybe I'll start to add some blues to compact my plants a little bit. Or I've got a lot more space, so my, these plants are squattier than I'd want them to be. I'm going to add a little bit more red to stretch them out a little bit and maybe improve my yields a little bit by filling out more of
Perfect
my tent because I have a
example.
7 foot height.
Mac one's a perfect example of that. That's a photo period that like, hey, I want to stretch this out because it's tight inner nodes. It's so tight. It's like extreme tight. Throw some extra reds in there a little early. Let that thing, open up a little bit for you. Maybe you can speed up the
Grape,
veg a little bit by doing that.
grape ape and purple Urkel are both like that as well. Kind of slowish veggers because they're so tight, and then they don't really stretch a bunch and flower. So having a larger plant with slightly larger node spacing is beneficial to work with. And I think that's one of the beauties of indoor growing is like you can essentially mad scientist the plant a little bit. And even if it's like a blue dream, you could grow it under a bunch of blue light and then make it squatty so that it doesn't overstretch and outgrow your space if you have the ability to choose your spectrums. And yeah, it's fascinating that it is really one of the main ingredients of the plants. Like it's carbon, light. The nutrients are just like a tiny percentage of what is really going on. You're just giving it enough to survive and sustain, essentially.
Yeah. And shout out to Jeremy at Build a Soil. He's doing a side by side right now with the Borg Evolutions, I believe he's got in there. And he's got a really super he's got like a yellow. I think he's just going 100% warm white, I believe. A really like HPS spectrum in one tent, and the tents are right next to each other. And he's got like an HPS spectrum on one side, and he's got that really blue spectrum on the other side, and he's growing GMO. So it's a really good one to watch. It's a really good one to kind of highlight the difference, just that light difference is going to make, that spectrum difference.
Boom Farm says Far Red is the best bang for your buck in terms of improvements for money that they've come across so far. I do think it's you got to look at dose dependency. You don't want to give too much or too little. I do think that it improves things for sure. It was one of the first things when I got my LED, I added that right away. So Asno grows to follow up on that. Earlier, I'd mentioned Cheap Home Grow as a grower who's bought two lights of his, referring to my grow earlier for Shane. I'm feeling kind of foolish at this point. And I will say, even with the misidentification of the specs, granted, if you wanted to get litigious, maybe you could make a case for something. I wouldn't want to go through all the headache of that. If it's growing plants for you and it's been working so far, I just keep rocking with it until you're ready to switch to a new light. If you're really feeling ass chapped or whatever, maybe you can try and sell it on the secondary market or give it to a grow me or a friend or whatever if you're in the situation to purchase yourself a new one without having to have money come in from the sale of the old one. But if you can just say, you know what, maybe they're dishonest in their marketing, but almost all LED manufacturers have been for many, many years, unfortunately. And at least you got one that's on the better end of the spectrum. I'd say it's probably 80 or 90% of the lights out there are not as good as Micro, even with the dishonest classification of the specs. And Resurrection Prophet said back in like 2018 or 2019, they used Migros testing to buy the other person's cobs instead of Migros cobs because Migros own testing showed that they were less efficient. So it's funny, I think their honesty in the past has bit them in the butt a little bit. So maybe they're trying to now take advantage like some of the other companies have been doing because they see it as such a commonplace in the industry and so many people don't get punished for it, right? Like I hate to point fingers, and I'm not going to because I don't want to have them come after me in case they are litigious. But there's lots of lighting manufacturers out there that have like gotten better. They're making much better lights now, but back then they were making really shitty claims and putting out really shitty lights that were like borderline dangerous, like would maybe catch on fire or short circuit and just not do what they were supposed to do. So definitely we've seen large improvements across the board from even the bottom of the bottom LEDs to the top of the top, but that doesn't excuse dishonesty in marketing. And as I do feel for you there a little bit, and respect that you are feeling kind of cheated by somebody who dishonestly marketed, but
Yeah, but don't
that's
feel
their
ashamed.
their
Don't
fault. That's
feel,
not your fault.
yeah,
They're the
exactly.
one who was in the wrong. You shouldn't ever, you know, I guess you could say somebody should do more due diligence. It's like other than owning a lighting company and having a manufacturer in China who can reverse engineer the fucking thing, spectrum test each diode, and actually
Well,
isolate and find out that they weren't being honest. I mean, that's a lot
honestly, the
far and above
biggest,
most people's ability.
yeah, the biggest thing that raised our eyebrow too, that to kind of got us like, okay, let's get a light and test it was there's a third party test that a lot of the big commercial companies require for regulation purposes, or if you're doing especially like a rebate program, they require it's a DLC testing, and it's third party and they test it. And when somebody or if we personally have a question about another lighting manufacturer's light, that's the first place we go to look. It's like, oh, let's go to DLC listing because that's a third party, and we'll see what numbers they got there and compare it to ours. And we didn't find a listing on there for him. So it's like, all right, he's not getting DLC testing. Start looking around. And like we don't see anything. We're like, okay, well, we'll just have to test it ourselves then, and we'll see what we find out. And unfortunately, it was whatever the case it wasn't right. So, but at least the good information's out there now, and at least people, hopefully, if they're still searching for lights and whatever, they'll he's at least got the right, information on the website now. So when they buy the light, they're getting what they're paying for.
I think at this point you can consider that investigative journalism. And there's a guy called Catalyst, CEO on Instagram. He works for Catalyst in California, and he kind of calls out a lot of the people that like aren't paying their bills in the legal market or that are doing shady and sketchy behavior. And even though he owns a shop and he's competing with some of these people, obviously he's going to like want to expose the bad acting of them, and maybe he's not going to expose every little thing that he might not have done perfectly over time. But even with that being said, I think it's important to look at if people are coming with credible evidence, we should look at it and say like, hey, they were doing real legitimate research, like investigative journalism. Something was being promised and it wasn't being delivered to the customer. So ultimately, what you gave was more customer clarity and honesty in the marketplace. So I'd say hats off to GML in that case. And I will say GML and I don't have a positive history. He attacked me in the comments a while ago and accused me of being a crackhead because I was just supporting my HLG lights. And like I have the screenshots of the comment. It was a wild accusation. I was just like, you know, basically, I think it was one of the Michigan growers. I won't call them out by name, but they were upset because one of the strings of diodes went out and they were foliar spraying, and those lights aren't waterproof. And they were kind of saying like they had switched from HLG to GML, and they were touting like, "Hey, these new ones I can spray and not worry about it. Like these old ones are basically crap because I sprayed them and it broke." And I was like, "Well, I didn't claim that it was sprayable."
Yeah,
So
that's
that's like
misuse.
saying, "Oh, I dropped my waterproof phone in the toilet and it broke. That piece of junk." It's like, no, like if it's not waterproof, then you can't expect it to live through water. So my HLG that I've had for years is still kicking butt. Like in fact, it's too strong and I have to dim it down. So it's not
A
a
good
bad light by
example would be
any
like
stretch of the
spraying it with
imagination.
sulfur. No light's gonna be liking that. You spray it with sulfur, it's gonna fuck up your LED. I don't care what you got going on. And
Yeah, even with the
yeah,
coatings and
misuse is
waterproof
gonna
things,
fuck
it's
them
just
up.
not 100%. It's like if you ride a motorcycle into a wall, you can't be too mad at it for like the safety rating or whatever. It's like that's on you at that point. If you ride at full speed into a brick wall, it's not going to protect you necessarily. So, um, I think we have to be reasonable at some point with the things. And that being said, it is preferable to have a light that can get a little bit of spray on it. I'm not going to sit here and pretend that it's not. When I got mine for under $100 on Amazon, delivered the same day as just like a veg light to experiment with, and then it blew me away. I've flowered under it a couple times and like just really been happy and had great experiences with them. So I was just speaking from my experience and got accused by him. But at the same time, I will go ahead and give credit where it's due. Like I'm not going to let my little comment battle back and forth. And I 99% sure he deleted the comment like within a day. So he was probably just heated and saying like, I think that's more of like an exaggeration. Like, what are you smoking crack kind of thing? Like, like fuck off. Like, are you crazy? Um, so, we talked even about the mayor of Toronto. I think he's a Canadian. I don't know if he's near Toronto or not, but I don't know how common that is up there.
Yeah.
I'm not gonna necessarily throw all the Canadians under the bus with that stereotype, but people use crack everywhere. It's not a thing that's unique to one country or people or whatever. But getting back on topic, I think I just try to, like I was talking about last week, like if I'm going to argue with somebody, I try to come from a place of like I'm genuinely trying to have a conversation with you, and I'm not going to make personal attacks. I just want to make it about the products, like yeah, one's not waterproof and one is, but that doesn't mean that the other one's terrible. Like I have a lot of watches that aren't waterproof that are great watches, and I also have a G-Shock that's a little rubber, $40 solar powered whatever that is waterproof, and it's windproof up to a certain extent. It's durable as hell. I love this watch. It's great. It works for a bunch of different purposes. But like if I want to wear something a little bit fancier, I'm not going to expect it to do the same thing. So I think it's all about the task and purpose. So those things need to be considered when you're looking into any equipment. But like Spartan said, it can be really like over a lot of people's heads because IP60, whatever rating, going into what waterproof rating things are, or if it actually matters, like, well, I take the Jack approach and just like maybe pull my plants out and then foliar them in my shower or whatever, or just spray them in a separate area or cover up the light with a big sheet of plastic or something, every single time that you do it, you could wrap it in a bag or something while they're off. And there's a million approaches. So there's no one right solution. I think we all find what works for us. And if you want to be the guy who has the waterproof light, so you don't have to sweat if a little bit of that foliar, because your plants are down here and the light's up there, you're spraying, a little bit of it's going to get up there. It's not going to be completely coated, but
But if
it's
you
getting on
do
there.
sweat, it's fine because your light is waterproof.
And sweat is actually one of the harder things on electronics or metals or technology. I mean, uh, it'll rust things quickly if they're not like well painted or a durable finish or whatever. So sweat is one of the harshest things on electronics. So in your grow room, if you are hot and sweaty and you happen to bump into your light or sweat onto it and it's at a higher waterproof rating, you don't have to necessarily worry about that. So I want to give a shout out to literally Time, who said earlier, a jack of all trades is a master of none, but oftentimes is better than a master of one, which I've heard that before in the past and tend to agree. Although when you find that master of one who you really need in the moment, it's nice to be able to call those people in as well. So shout out to the specialist and shout out to the generalist. I think we can benefit and appreciate from all of them. And I think we can all both be part of both of those groups, right? We can find something that we become an expert in, and then also try and be a generally well-rounded person in a lot of different random stuff. And that's the beauty of life is you learn something new every day. You can keep growing just because you hit pick an age, I don't know, 50, 60, 70, 80, 90, 100 years old doesn't mean you have to just be like, you know what, I'm perfect now. I'm going to stop learning. Just keep on trying and you'll keep on getting better and or attempting to. And if you're not attempting to, then you'll never actually give yourself the opportunity to. So keep taking those shots.
Yeah, just, I mean, I'm not gonna lie, GML even talked to me in private and said, "Do you think we should even talk about this on the show? Do you think it's something that it's, even a good look or whatever?" I said, if we don't attack anybody and we just tell the truth, I don't see how anything's wrong. There's nothing wrong with just telling the truth. And I don't think anybody's gonna disrespect somebody to just come out and tell the truth. And it was tipped off from somebody else, like a customer that just legitimately wanted to know, like, what the fuck are the specs on this thing? What diodes are on that? And I guy that's curious too. And of course, yeah, I'm not gonna I'm not gonna
The funny thing
deny
is
it.
they could have just made up specs and sent it to that person. They probably would have been fine and went about their day. None of this shit would have happened. So
Yeah, exactly.
lesson learned, people get back to your fucking emails or your
Yeah.
customers.
Answer the fucking customers. Don't
But by
ghost.
not
You start ghosting people and you start banning their comments and deleting their comments off your social media. That just fires people up more and gives them, you have to address an issue,
if
at
you
least.
start hiding it, it becomes like a certain list out there that everybody wants to see that gets talked about a lot. That I'm not going to get into, but when people start hiding it, it makes some shit look fishier. So if you start being like, "Oh, I'm going to delete this comment. I'm going to ban this person," that to me says guilt, right? It's like innocent people. And the beauty of what you guys did is you cannot be sued for defamation or slander if you are telling the truth, right? So you guys did the testing. You
Absolutely.
honestly reported on it. It wasn't like you're saying, don't buy this brand, it's bad. Or you didn't say it's like half the efficiency or something. Like you said, these are the results we got from multiple different things. And this is how we figured out that it wasn't what was being claimed. And so, I mean, I just, like I said, that's fair investigative journalism. And I think fortunately or unfortunately, sometimes it can only come within the industry. Um, Lighting manufacturers regulating other lighting manufacturers because some government agency is not going to come in and fucking say, "Oh, hey, you overpromised and underdelivered on your diodes," right? There's a lot more important shit that still has not been regulated on, right? Like they're still trying to
Absolutely.
figure out Bitcoin and all this other stuff. It's like big money stuff that like this is so small potatoes for Democrat, Republican, it doesn't matter. Like people in the middle, like they would laugh if you brought this to their table. They'd be like, "Yeah, do you know how much shit there's going on? Like from just I don't even want to get into it, but there is a lot bigger fish to fry. I'll say that. And
Yeah,
so
let's just say there's
unfortunately,
literally wars going on. Wars with an S, not one, going on right now. There's important things going.
yeah,
To just
they're
put
not even
things in
going to take that
perspective.
call. They'll delete that
Yeah.
email or voicemail so fast. It's just boop. Message
Yeah.
deleted. Next
Yeah.
message. So as much as I'm passionate about it and we talk about it on shows like this, it's not going to get a lot of traction really anywhere. So due diligence on our behalf is required in this regard. And I think that whether it's GML calling out Migro or Migro calling out Mars Hydro or something, like whoever it is calling out whoever, as long as the data is presented in an honest fashion, which in the past I feel like he did a good job of. So I'm not trying to use this moment to discredit everything or even the lights that he produced because like I said, hey, they lied about how they got there, but at least you got the specs that you were promised. So it's like it could have been a lot worse. They could have said it was like a 3 efficiency and then gave you a 2 or a 1, right? But they gave you whatever the efficiency ended up being.
Well, to be fair, it's not all the right. Like you're not going to get the same nanometer peaks, and there's a lot of people who are looking for that specific nanometer because there's a study that says that targets chlorophyll A rather than chlorophyll B. There's a whole I don't want to get into that whole debate right now because I haven't read up on it myself, and it's new information to me. Um, but there's people pissed off about that specifically for that reason. So they're not getting what they were advertised. They want that double peak blue. They want that. Traditionally, you see that for 40 nanometer, but there's a 437 peak too. So you get two peaks because of that Evo mint
There's
wood.
different phytochromes and cryptochromes, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
so trust me, I wired my own light with no electrical knowledge. Thankful to Ohm's Law and Kyle Breeder for the help. Kyle's an electrician, and Ohm's Law sold me the light, and was it was actually surprisingly with Wago connectors a lot easier. But I did just take some old extension cord, cut it, and then like wired it into my light because it was such a low power. It was like I think in total like 28 watts. It was like an additional kind of like a LED bar, like a bolt-on, just extra. I have a 220-watt base or whatever, but I've got an extra like 20 to 30 watts of reds and blues. So that red and blue part of it was rapid LED, which was just a plug and play. You literally just plugs into an outlet and that goes into the little, it's like a 4 diode, 730 nanometer red. And I coupled that with 660 reds and then 440 blues. And I'm sure that there is some study out there that says the 437 is better than the 440. But to me, I've seen the testing on the diodes themselves. And even if you try and make a perfect 440 diode, it spikes and it's like the spikes at 440, but it bleeds over into that 437. It bleeds over into the 450. So you're getting a little bit of both sides of whatever number. So if my 660 is a 660, I'm also getting 650 and I'm also getting 670 because it does that little bell curve effect and it's not a perfectly pure, even if maybe at the exact point of light it is. I think just like when water travels through space, it loses some of its heat. Like the light loses some of its intensity and might not
Right.
hold
But the
true to the
point
color.
is, if you were promised a 437 and 440 peak, and you only got one, you're only getting that little bleed on either side of 440, where if you got both, you got that bleed all the way over from 437
You're
over a
right.
little
Yeah,
bit,
no, it's
you know?
broader, and I believe in the broader the better. I think that was one of the reasons plasma was interesting for a little bit. I think the inefficiencies were what make it not so effective, and then also the single point of light is a just a I would say at this point a drawback, having gone from HPS slash metal halides to pure HPS to CMH to LEDs. I think the fucking bar LED that I got on Amazon that's just like a 3 foot bar LED that's like a 3500 Kelvin. The clones that I've got underneath there are so happy. They're praying. They're like just like slightly prey, but they're nice and lush and green. They're it's just like unbelievable the quality of light that you can actually get for fairly low cost. So um, if you're looking for something for veg, don't sweat too much on spending a lot of money for veg lights. I'd say that for sure because I'm having pretty good results with very low budget stuff at this point. That's like not the newest or greatest. And even that, like, if you made me go back to T5s or T8s or whatever, T7, the little tube fluorescent lights, I would still kick ass under them. I'd find a way to make it work because they worked back then. And if I had to grow under an HPS, I'd find a way to make it work. So it's just like we can make excuses left and right about one thing or another not being just right or perfect or whatever in our grow, but we can also, adapt and improvise and overcome and try and make the best of our situation. Be the cheap home grower that doesn't make the excuse, that makes the hack, that makes the, little, you find a way, find a way to make it work. Just growers find a way. If it's too humid, then you figure out a dehumidification strategy or an airflow strategy or whatever it is. Maybe you cut back a whole plant, even though you can fit 4 plants in there. Maybe you just run three, because rather than molding your whole entire crop with four plants, you can grow 3 plants and actually have a harvest that's decent and in the right RH range. So sometimes we have to take a little step back and realize that there's more options than we might initially even be considering. Because it's like in your head, you're like, oh, I can grow 4 plants or 6 plants or however many. So you want to throw all of them in there. But maybe that's not the right decision. Maybe you just need one. Maybe you don't smoke that much. So one plant is going to harvest, several ounces or even up to over a pound, depending on how large you grow it. And you might not need the whole 6 plant count. You might not need as many as you are expecting. So I think it's worthy considerations. And even when it comes to lighting, Cheddar Bob earlier said most people I think are not their grows just aren't set up for they don't have enough headspace and their plants aren't dialed in enough for the modern LEDs at this point. Like almost everybody has to dial them back. Like I see almost nobody cranking them to the full and getting like,
Yeah.
oh, I need more light. It's like, no, if you crank that thing full, it's probably more than your space is needing. And I recommend that because then you can dim it down and get better efficiency and grow to what your plants are happy at. That to me, like once if you have a meter, great. But like once your plants like I haven't metered my little lower veg space where my Death Star and my GG4 are, but I'm not going to change anything with the light level or the light intensity because the plants are fucking happy and they're
Yeah.
loving it.
Yeah.
So I'm not going to play around. Why mess with it? If it ain't broke, don't fix it.
Your plants will tell you. They'll let you know. They'll let you know if just keep it. You're going in there every day. Look at your plants. You'll notice little differences. The edge of the leaf starting to curl up or something like that, or you'll know when they're getting too close to the light. The the petioles, the leaf petioles are turning that red. That could be a nutrient thing, but it's also a classic sign of too much light starting to blast them. And I almost sound like a fucking, I hate it when it sounds like a salesman, but GMO's also, this was my idea to him to look into, and I'm glad he ran with it. But we're going to be coming out with a light meter, and it's still expensive. Light meters are fucking expensive. It's still like, he said it's going to be, he's guessing in the $400 to $500 range right now. But it's going to show you with one reading, it's going to show you the spectrum. It's going to tell you the RGB, like red, green, blue percentage, which I like to look at that. Honestly, that red, blue, green percentage is so cool because that's like um it's like a universal number almost that you can compare all spectrums with. You know what I mean? A competitor's spectrum or anybody's spectrum. If you have a DLC, especially because that's where I first saw it was on DLC, was that the RBG comes out on every test. I'm like, that's why our manufacturer's going by that. That kind of tells you like a summary of the spectrum.
Micro used to show that on his testing. That's where I first saw it actually. And it was like
Yeah.
comparing CMH to HPS to LED, but it showed how similar some of them were in some cases. When you look at
Yeah.
some big glob or whatever, and it's like this, that's really too that goes over my head a lot of the time. I kind of understand at this point because I've seen so many of them. I can be like, oh, this is a little bit greener of a spectrum. That's interesting. Or this is the typical red, blue with a little hump. But with the um fucking numbers, 77, 20, 10, or
Yeah.
95, 5 is very clear. There's no monkeying with that business. It's just like how much red, how much blue. And with like art, if you learn as a kid, the primary color is RGB, right? Like you can use those to make any other color. And that's why LEDs can, you can have a little cheap LED strip that turns purple, blue, pink, purple, cyan, green.
Yeah.
They can blend those colors to make literally any other color.
And we understand, like we talked about earlier, what red does. We understand what blue does. So if we're looking at those percentages, we're like, oh, we have a higher percentage of red. I'm probably bulking flowers right now by doing this, or maybe encouraging root growth, or maybe encouraging elongation growth in veg on a tight plant. Depending, it's cool because it's like crop steering with light. Um, but it's also going to show PPF as well, right? So it's going to give you all that information you need about the light. It gives you the spectrum, the RBG, and the PPF, and it's going to help people, stop guessing and get like a number to go by. Be like, essentially what you would do is like, this is the best grow I ever had of this fucking plant. You go stick that meter underneath that motherfucker and write it down at different points in the grow as you're seeing that this is the best thing you ever grew. And you match that next time you grow that. You know what I mean?
So Science LED had what they called light
Light
recipes,
recipes. Yeah.
and it would save your grow recipe for that cycle. And they had this option, like one of the guys I used to talk with a bunch on fucking talk shit with you. I can't think of his name right now. East Coast guy, but he had like an iPad and he could slide the RGB. He could just go in there and turn all the reds off or all the blues off and like had a scale that like, and it would give you the live breakdown of it right there in the app. And you could just boom,
Yeah.
boom. And I think that you guys do that now as well.
I had the Raging Kush light from them and had that app, and that was pretty cool. I love that. Yeah, that was really cool. Problem was that was a I don't know what type of battery, like maybe some lithium ion or something battery. So there's a battery on the light itself. So when the power goes out, all your settings and everything are saved. So when the power comes back on, it keeps your light cycle. It's super handy. But when that battery finally dies, it makes it difficult to control the light a little bit. But that was a good light. I liked it. I enjoyed that light, and I liked the
Is it
ability to use your phone as the controller. That was pretty cool.
That is nice, and I remember you mentioning that in the past. Is that um, battery able to be replaced? Like, can you just pop off a side plate and pull it out and pop a new one in, or is it like more involved process than that?
Not there's nothing easily done. Like there's no hatches or doors or anything. It looks like you'd have to unscrew, probably go into the driver, maybe. I'm not exactly sure. I
Yeah,
haven't
take like
taken
the whole thing apart.
Yeah, I haven't taken the housing off to look to see where the battery is actually located or wired into the whole thing. Um, I got uh I got with GML before or slightly after that, and I just replaced it. So I
I don't blame you.
had to put the effort into it, to be
I
honest with
say if
you.
it ain't broke, don't fix it. But if it is broke, sometimes it is time to fix it or
Fix
replace
it.
it. So
Yeah, yeah.
replacing is a fix in my book, and sometimes quality is cheaper in the long run. So newer technology, I think the first to the field isn't always necessarily the best.
I
When I was a
agree.
kid, it was like first is the worst, second is the best, third is the one with the treasure chest or some shit like that. But the concept, like, um, not to get too off topic, but like a lot of people in today's society, they're like the first revolver was Colt, the Colt revolver, and then Smith and Wesson came like 15 years after the patent kind of expired. They've both been making them for like 170 plus or 180 years. A lot of people prefer the Smith and Wesson because the ergonomics are like a little bit more friendly to the user. It just for a lot of people it makes more sense. Some people still prefer the Colt, right? It is the first one, it has a longer legacy, and it is the original. So there's sort of a interesting thing like first to market versus best in the market, right? Like eventually, if something truly is better, it's going to replace it. But there's this weird thing like the new stuff actually has to be like so much better sometimes for people to finally adopt it. So
Well,
it
it's cool
could
to see
be,
that. It's cool to see that change in the industry. Like we saw it in LEDs. There was blurple at first, right? And then spectrum changed to more full spectrum, and it was quantum board. It was Cobb's, and then it was quantum boards, I believe, or they were pretty much at the same time, maybe. And then that became really super popular and it was copied and done all over. And then it was pretty much what we have now, which is the really spread out bar style. Who knows what next big change? I think the biggest change that Grandmaster LEDs brought that I thought was cool, that I hadn't seen anywhere else, was in the tent series lights where they put that extra bar on the outside edge and really focused on getting an even spread of the diodes. Um, the reason why that hasn't been done everywhere and why it's still pretty uncommon is because that's really focused in on the home grower in a tent. And in the LED market, most lights are sold commercially by far than the home grow market. Of course, some people target the home grow market, but they're also trying to target the commercial at the same time. And so why that's a big deal and you won't see it is because that's not effective commercially. It's not effective to hang two of those lights next to each other. That's why the reason it's that's the big reason why it's not done in the light world as a whole is that when you see those edges on the power maps with those lower numbers, like say, we'll just throw numbers out. We'll say it's 1,000 in the middle, but it's like 300 on the outside or 400 on the outside. The reason for that is because that's designed kind of for it to hang next to another light. So if you have another light next to that, maybe 4 foot apart, all the way down a 20-foot row of plants, now that 300 par is adding to this 300 par, and maybe you're getting 600 or 800 par because of the spillover of the light bouncing around. If you had a tent like that, how we have designed, with those double bars on the outside edge, that when you hang it by itself or you hang it in a tent by itself, and it's even par, 1,000 to 1,000 all the edge, now you're frying the fuck out of your plants when you hang two next to each other because that 1,000 is, doubled. So
Right. It's all about
that's why you
really,
don't see that, and that's why it's like a specific design and it's like it takes somebody who grows fucking plants, grows that specific plant in a tent to realize that's a problem. That's a hole in industry that's not being addressed.
it's funny because like some of the looked down upon manufacturers for a while have become more palatable in that they're using similar, if not the same, diodes, similar quality drivers, and similar form factors, even in certain circumstances. Like some of the Mars, I've mentioned them a bunch of times. They have some of the spammiest sales reps of all time. I've been offered to be sponsored by them about 700 times from 8,000 different reps, but it is a fact that they used to make blurples that were pretty, and I actually saw people grow fine plants under the blurples, but like to my eyes, it was just like offensive to see a blurple in action. So the fact that they've come into full spectrum and then become better and better and better, and even like VivoSon, who I use their tents and exhaust stuff, they've made some like kind of goofy ones that have like exhaust fans built into them, and I'm like, we're going back to that. Like, didn't we figure out that was not the way to do this like years ago? But honestly, that's where they're I don't even know if I don't want to use the term because I think it might be a racist term, but they're talking about how sometimes when you get something from overseas, the manufacturers, you're reading an English sentence, but it's clearly not written by an English speaker.
Oh, like a
So
translation or something.
yeah, and there's a lot of stuff lost in translation. What we actually want, like you're saying, like a grower who grows is going to make something different than like somebody on the outside looking in, seeing what people are buying the most on Amazon, and then replicating that and trying to like make it cheaper, make it better, or make it just flashier and more appealing, maybe a part of a package or something else.
The first
But
thing is they try to clone it as far as looks. If they can make it look almost exactly the same, then they can claim that it's the same. And then they
and most
start
people won't
throwing
look
in,
any further, right?
right. And then they start throwing in different diodes and maybe different drivers and just cheaper components.
I will say, like, I have seen a lot of people grow dank under Mars Hydro and Spider Farmer and a lot of the stuff that you can get on Amazon or Alibaba or wherever for very reasonable prices. And if that's where you're starting, there's no shame in that at all. They're not going to have as uniform of a coverage. They're not going to have as long of a lifespan, and they're not going to have the features of the color or spectrum tuning, and even like stuff like sunrise, sunsets, and all these different perks. But that's like you pay for a fancier car, you're gonna get the, stars in the headliner or whatever type thing. Some things have all the bells and whistles, and some of them are just gonna get you point A to point B. And there's nothing wrong with like the Toyota Corolla that just reliably gets you point A to point B. And if that gets you a few crops under your belt, and then you're like, you know what? I had a good few harvests and I saved so much money on my medicine that I would actually like my corner plant to not look so runty. So I'm going to buy either another one of those lights or one that more adequately covers my grow space. And once you do that, you'll be like, wow, I'm growing dank from corner to corner now, like from edge to edge. Like every fucking top is frosty as hell, and underneath it, it's not like a runty little bud. Like it's thick nugs all the way down that stalk. And I would say Jeremy from Build a Soil, man, he's got in terms of experience online growing, like for years, he's just been showing grow after grow after grow after grow. He's like Brandon Russ, just harvesting dank after dank, filled big, beautiful ass tents, seemingly with like this is part of the reason I switched over to organics and I've stayed. A lot of he's running a full ass business and he's just like got this tent over there that he pops in a few times and just he'll like live stream himself doing the work. And I'm like, wow, he's like really just kind of giving them water, maybe de-leafing, putting them through the scrog or whatever. Like he made it look like it was not so much work and he was getting great results. I was like, all right, I can get down with that. I honestly just enjoy more looking at and I say listening to the plants, but they're obviously not talking to me, but just like taking in what does it need? I'm a pot lifter. I love going around right now. Like I'm popping a whole bunch of different strains. Some of them are ready for water way sooner than other ones.
Yeah.
Even if I give them all the same amount of water right at the very start, it's part of the game when you're pheno hunting. You have to learn this one takes barely any water. This one is drinking every day. And it's just like how they can be so different at such a young age blows my mind still, but I'll keep on picking up those pots and I'll take a little skewer and stick it in there to see if the soil is still damp deep down or if it is really actually dry. Because sometimes you might get you lift up a heavy damp one and then you lift up one that's like 50-50. And you're like, oh, this one's dry. But really, if you like spin it around or look at it or take a thin barbecue skewer and stick it down in there, pull it up. And if it's still like muddy, you don't want to hit it again with the water. Just a little tip
Bro, I'll
for
just take
people
if
out there
it's
who like
like,
to overwater like myself.
especially if it's in cocoa, if it's in a 1 gallon or smaller, I'll pull it right out of the fucking container and look at the root ball. If I'm questioning, if I want, I'll physically just pull it out and look. Like, is it dry? Is it wet? I'm gonna look at this motherfucker and see. Put it back in there. But if it's in a bigger one, I usually won't do that.
I'm in solo cups right now, but I've got the red cup on the outside and then the clear cup on the inside. I got the compostable plastic cups or whatever, cut the little holes in the bottom and I double stack them. I was just kind of like rushing through when I planted my Death Star and my GG4. And I did a little tiny layer at the bottom of the cup. And then I planted the Rockwool cube, which is maybe like a 1 inch by 1 inch cube, but it had
Okay.
roots in there. I probably should have planted it up towards the top as I
Yeah.
typically would, but I planted it in the bottom and like almost to like the first node and just backfilled it for
Kind of like doing a
stability
tomato.
purposes. Yeah. And within like 2 days, the whole cup, there's spiraled roots from the top, like going all the way down and around.
Oh
So
yeah.
it didn't just like rely on that Rockwell cube. I was like very, very happy to see that. So they're alive and well. And
That's cool. You can plant that whole thing when you up pot it into your the final pot, and it'll just mine that Rockwell cube. It's just spun rock anyway.
at this point, it's such a small chunk that I'm really not going to worry about it. But I still think I'm going to try and take as many clones as humanly possible. I'm going to transplant them both into really 2 gallon pots, which are the 1 gallon easy swap pot. And I'm going to get them nice and chunky and just take tons and tons of clones off of them, root as many of them as I can. And then I'll grow the ones that I want. And then I'll start sending them out to people like Spartan Grown and whoever
Yeah.
else wants them if I have more than I need. So, um,
Overgrow the world.
that's the goal, man. It's like once I
Love it.
get them, it's like now you've got the provenance. It's like it came from
Yeah.
like Tiki. Well, in
Now,
GG4's case,
now
it was
your
like
name goes in
Josie.
it. Your name goes in there underneath it.
People are like, I
People
got
we
it from
send it out
Jack,
to.
who got it from
I'm like,
Tiki,
I
who
got
got
the
it from
Jack
Josie.
cut. Somebody asked me, I got the Jack cut. I don't know what you got, but I got the Jack Greenstock cut.
The He's from Ohio and he's got the Ohio cut of the Death Star, so I guess it's more trustworthy. It adds
There
a
you
little bit of
go.
a,
Like,
you know,
dude was
I
fucking from Ohio. I know it's legit.
Yeah, I'm definitely excited to grow that one out. And that one, to be honest, is looking better of the two. The GG4 had a little bit of red striping, but it's already starting to bounce back. M3 soil, fucking shout out to Resurrection Prophet. We've been chatting. He's got some wild turkeys in his backyard. You lucky, lucky man. He's got a
Yeah, I
beautiful
saw
property
that.
going on. But he sent me that M 2 bags of M3 and the Papa's Perfect Poo and the tea. and I'm just using the M3 straight from the soil, seedlings, clones, everything. They're so happy, the plants in there. It's just like that shit is so good. I'm probably gonna buy another bag because I realized my Earthbox root and veggies are actually like 2 cubic foot. They're as big as the regular Earthbox OG, but they're like shaped in a way that they fit in a much more ergonomic space in the tent. But I've got 2 bags of the M3. The first one I'm already tapping into for like the veg stuff, but I'm gonna
It's
need
nice to
more of
have an
it.
extra bag just for like filling up for clones, getting them into little pots,
And that
maybe
was how
even
my when I
water.
was most successful, that's when I was really crushing it, was when I would start fresh in the veg for the solo cup and then the 1 gallon. And then the re-amend was happening in the earth boxes. At
Yeah.
that
Yep.
point, they would get at least the, 2 gallons from each plant being transplanted in that were pretty basically fresh. And
Yep.
then everything else in there sort of homogenized together
That's
with
how I
the
do it.
re-amends.
That's how I do it.
And it works so well that I'm like, you know what? I don't mind supporting. I love the soil. It grows such dank bud that I've grown over 2 grams per watt with it too. So the performance yield wise is like solid. I like all the amendments that are in there. I could probably try and source this and that and the other thing, but I don't like mixing them up and potentially breeding this shit in and having to like cover myself up and sweat my ass off while I'm doing it, or buy a cement mixer or rent a cement mixer, do it all. Like I
Yeah.
know it can be done, but man, it's a lot of elbow grease, and I got a bad neck and bad back, and if I can avoid and fucked up hands from all these different ailments, if I can avoid more manual labor going into the process of growing, I would definitely take that really well done bag. And it doesn't have to be Michigan Made Max. I'm not sponsored by them, but Resurrection Profit hooked me up with it. It is at this point probably my favorite soil. I've grown plumerias in it. I've grown so many different things in it at this point. It works for a lot of different plants, and it's called the Michigan Made Mix or the Medical Marijuana Mix. So it's M3 either
Yep.
way. And I think the guy who made it, Swan Swanson, is no longer with us, but he's still
Yeah.
got a crew of people over there holding it down and getting it out there to grow shops, and you can I think order it online or over the phone. And man, it is fucking great stuff. So if you're in the US, at least I think you'll be able to get your hands on it. And I will say it's probably a premium compared to a lot of other soils out there, but it's water only, start to finish. If you really truly just figure
Yeah.
out dial in your watering, once you get to the earth box, you can just look down the hole. If there's no water in there, you refill it. If there's water in there, you leave it alone. You will harvest dank, I guarantee you, with that method.
Absolutely.
It's the closest to foolproof or fail proof of any grow method I've tried.
And the
Like
simplest
you really
water
have to
technique.
almost try to mess it up at that point.
Yeah. There's a question in chat. Smoke Your
For the
Own wants
for
to know,
plant
can you
sitters,
go ahead, Jack? What you said about plant sitters? Oh yeah, the easiest
I
for
was just gonna
plant
say for
sitters.
plant sitters,
Yeah.
it makes it so easy. Yeah. It's like they barely even have to, a lot of the time, they don't even have to do anything because I'll just fill it all the way up until it's overflowed. And it's like if I'm not gone for like a week or something, then it's not going to be a major deal. So uh, I've gotten away with a lot with earth boxes, thankfully.
Yeah, I always tell them too that I was like, just water them every other day. Just check on them every other day. You don't even gotta check them every day. And that makes the plant sitters extremely happy. It makes me happy when it all works out. But Smoke Your Own was asking me specifically, but I might need your help on this one. Can you recommend a place to get some Donnyburger seeds? I think auctions and shit like that's the only place you're gonna find them. They're not making new ones, not that I'm aware of. He's been begged and begged and begged to make new ones, and I don't see it happening. So that's Skunk House Seeds I'm talking about when I say he. Maybe follow him and pray to whoever you pray to, and maybe, just maybe, mind over matter, you can convince him to come off of any he's got in stock, which he claims he doesn't have many, or you can find him at auction somewhere, or you can get him to make some new ones, God damn it. But I don't know. I don't know how else you could get Donny Burger seeds. I would like to know as well.
There's a back cross that's happening on Twitter right now. I'll fill you guys in next week who's doing it because I replied to the comment saying like it's one of my favorites. And so it's somewhere within, if you stalk me on X, formerly known as Twitter, you can go through my replies and you'll see somewhere in there I responded to a guy who did a Donnie Burger BX because like us, they know and appreciate how fucking dang Donnie Burger was. So I don't know if they're ever going to put those out to market or if it's just like a personal passion project. But I think if you do a back cross, you're probably going to make enough seeds to hopefully be able to spread them around. I don't know if for sale or for donation or gift or whatever, but I just love to see people in the community taking that stuff seriously. Preservation, man, even if the breeder didn't die in this case, they're still alive. They're still making other stuff. And it was a celebrated strain. A lot of people, it won cups in San Diego and a lot of other places. I think in Michigan there was cup winners of the Donny Burger as well, and it was kind of a cult classic, highly celebrated among the big, strong, heavy user community, the people that like the heavy, strong shit that has a little bit of
Yeah.
that funky gas with the undertone of like the garlicky, just raunchiness to it.
Yeah, very GMO family of strains.
Which like we're supporting the guy who basically found and made the GMO famous. So like I love that from somebody who is a weed nerd who likes to go down the provenance, like where did this come from? Who made it? Why is it
Yeah.
called this? Why is it called that? Why does it smell? And it's like that was a pretty pure win. And even in that case, there's no guarantee. And that being said, I have some Velvet Punch F1, Velvet Punch F2, and F3, and I'm not sure if I'm going to be able to make new stock of F3 and put them back on the website at some point because we'll see how those seeds germinate and if I'm able to find something that's worthwhile and represent like similar representation to what I found in the first times I ran it. Because let's say I pop them and I do find a male and a female, but it's just like lackluster compared to what it used to be. Um, I wouldn't ethically feel okay moving forward with it. If it's still fire, it's still similar to what I remember, look, smell, taste, high, etc., then I would kind of bring it back and continue to work with it in my crosses. But I think everything needs to prove itself because there's a
I'm
lot of
glad I
whack
used it
shit.
in Spartan Puke. I'm glad I got it, at least part of it in Spartan Puke. But I got to start getting stingy with my seeds because my Spartan Puke is the like most popular. And I think, let me look. I'm almost out of those. Yeah. It's, I guess not almost out, but I don't have a ton.
That's not a lot. I mean, for most people, that's like a bunch of seeds, but you can go through that real quick, especially if you're giving them out. And I know you have
Yeah.
been.
Yeah.
But it just goes to show like the good stuff should be worked with. I'm glad that you made a cross with it. I wish I would have. I thought I was gonna be able to go back and pop these seeds, and I should have taken it a little more seriously. Maybe use my seed cracker, maybe use some H2O2 and gone a little bit crazier in the popping process. I just kind of wishfully thought like, hey, I'm gonna do this the simple way, at least as far as I go about it. And to my credit or discredit, a bunch of other seeds that I popped the exact same way went perfectly doing the method that I was doing. So it's just like, to me, not to get religious, I always say it's Ja telling me that's not the one, bro. You weren't the one. Like, I'm not the one who's supposed to be, as much as I've already hyped the Donnie Burger, I'm not the one to pop the seed and find the cut. My homie, his name's Joe. He's the one. He's got the cut. His cut is fire as fuck, and he still runs it, and it's still killer. So I don't need to pop it. I don't need to run it. If I really, really want to, I could go reconnect with him, and he'll hook me up. But I'm not the one. Maybe I'm the one to do the Moonfog or the Granny Candy or the Vortex Project V F2. That's what the seed gods are telling me to work with. That's what pop. That's what's growing. And even within that, some of them are growing better than other ones. And I'm going to take the best. I'm going to baby the Project V's, admittedly, because I want any piece of old subcool work. And my buddy here, Spartan Grown, who's always with me week to week, I'd love to. He's grown my Velvet Punch, so it'd be cool to return the favor. And I'm definitely going to grow the Spartan Puke because I'm such a Donnie Burger fan and such a Vortex fan. It's just like, uh, it reminds me of Cherry Lemonade from Subcool. It's like two of my favorite strains ever put together. Cherry
Yeah.
Pie, Jack the Ripper. It's like when people do that, I'm like, I like, spaz out. I'm like, oh, I need to buy these seeds. I'm like, wait, no, I have too many seeds already. It's like, buy the seeds. It's like, no, I already have too many seeds. But I'm over there fighting for my
His
life.
storm.
Oh, there's always room for more seeds or fresher seeds or better seeds. But yeah, man, it's if I would have known that Sub was going to go as quick as he did, and then things were going to become less
Weird.
reputable slash available, I would have stocked up quite a bit more on a lot of those strains and would have made bigger efforts to, even while he was here, maybe make some F2s or start breeding with it and having more fun with it. Uh, Maybe out of respect when he was here, I just figured I'll let him do the work and the other guys he's working with do the work and go from there. But nothing is forever, that's for sure.
That's for sure. Raptor says, Raptor Grow, shout out Raptor Grow. He's got 3 or 4 Chernobyl seeds popped for him. I love seeing that too. That's
That's
a
another one of
strain.
my
It's like
favorites.
I love it. I love that strain. I love to grow it. I mean, I love to smoke it and the flavor, but then the leafiness of that strain just always eventually wears me down to the point where I'm like, fuck you, get out of my garden.
I always tell the story. Mine had like a middle finger, it like had the leaf growing this way, like out of the the petiole. It had a bunch of them. It even grew buds out of the petiole. And I always joke that increases your hash yield quite a bit if you've got your flower is grown from the leaves. But it admittedly is a lot more of a pain in the butt. Not only did it have the leaf growing from here, but it also had like more than this number of fan leaves. It had like
Oh, jeez.
12 or 13 on some of them. So it's like for every single leaf, you've got double the leaflets or whatever. And so it was a one plant in the garden and it was the smallest plant in the garden and it still was a bigger pain in the butt to trim than the other two plants that were way bigger than it because they were just all nug meat and like very little. They were a trimmer's paradise kind of thing, all bud with, admittedly a little bit of work to be done because the buds were so fat you had to kind of dig in. My wife is really fucking good at trimming, but if you know how to like just peel it back just a little bit and get up in there and clip
Yep.
right at the base of that little stem, she's way better
Brought the whole thing
than
out.
me because I've
Yep.
got arthritis in both hands and but she'll turn it and flip it upside down and she's fucking
It's better to go
a
upside
master.
down. I agree. And you can follow where you can see where it connects. And if you can clip it right there, boom, the whole thing comes out one go. Oh, it's so much better.
A well-trimmed bud like that you just get all the fan leaves and then the nug is basically just un disturbed. It is
Yeah.
that's the thing of beauty. That's what home growing is really about. It doesn't have to get packaged up and shipped across the state and tested at one facility and then shipped to another facility and stored in another warehouse and shipped to a dispensary or delivery or whatever it is. And it was in your tent, it was in your greenhouse or in your outdoor area, and then in your jar after it's done drying. It didn't travel too far, and
You got it
so
right at the peak freshness. That's perfect. You get to enjoy it like that. And it's like you're not getting it at the dispose, man. Maybe at a micro grow where they're
like
all
Yellow Skunk
vertically
Farm with that.
integrated.
They've got their I think it's like a African or Indian sativa. I think it's Indian sativa at Yellow Skunk Farm. That's like a real long flowering one. But now, at first it looked crazy because they're growing the super long flowering sativa. But now it's like late in flower and it's starting to bulk up. And like, oh man, that's gonna be some fire smoke. I think they said it had some vanilla smell to it, and
Vanilla,
maybe some citrus
nice.
as well. So I'm excited to see what they find with that. I love vanilla. That's a rare one, I think, out there. I know Barney's Farm had the vanilla Kush, and shout out to the boys, Mendo Dope. They worked with some of that and
Vanilla,
bred that into some of their lines
vanilla is one of the most popular.
because they had a really killer cut.
Vanilla is like one of the most popular scents, period, in the world. Vanilla. So that would be pretty.
I love it, like vanilla ice cream, vanilla bean, just like the aroma, like a wax melt or oil in a bathroom or whatever, hand soap. Like it's a pleasant aroma, unless you're like allergic to it or really hate it for some reason. If it's too strong or if it's done poorly, because like I think it's like 154 different things that make a true like vanilla bean,
Yeah,
but
like
most of them extract
imitation.
down to like the big four.
You don't want the imitation vanilla. You want the real deal.
The real deal is just like with cannabis, like the full spectrum, like that makes a huge difference. Um, I was surprised I walk with my former neighbor, this elderly lady and her dog, and the dog, we had a random fucking rare for here on the East Coast in Michigan, Ohio. You guys probably like we get this all the time in Florida as well. One of those thunderstorms that just like fucking comes out of nowhere, like rains like hell, thunder and lightning for like 30 minutes to an hour, and then it's
That's
like
gone.
sunny 10
Yep.
minutes later,
Humid as
And
hell.
so we had one of those. But the reason I tell that story is I went to walk the dog with the person, and the dog is scared more of the lightning than the rain,
Yeah.
the thunder and the lightning. So we give the little pet CBD or whatever. But this was like actually like a high quality, like one of the best qualities I've ever seen. It was full spectrum. The oil was like good quality, and there's like only two ingredients. It's like cannabis oil and some high quality binding oil. And it was like the dosage chart and everything was really professionally done. And the dog reacted super well to even, I think it was like a really relatively small dose, but the dog rarely, if ever, gets it. And we did sublingual, like it thought was like a treat, and it like starts looking up, and I just like lifted up the tongue and boom, popped it right underneath there. and they weren't bothered by it at all, and were able to sleep through most of the rest of the afternoon or morning, and not be all normally they'd be trying to jump out the windows and bust out the screens and just bouncing off the walls, so nervous. So I do think that the pet CBD thing, if you get good quality stuff, can be very effective. Just like for people, like full spectrum, and um, it matters, getting all of that stuff, whether it's vanilla or cannabis, you want to
Oh yeah,
have the full profile what the plant delivers.
absolutely.
That's the real harm in the processed foods these days, in the middle of the, you know, kind of the grocery store. If you go in the middle, like everything that's packaged or in freezers, they're extracting just tiny bits of the food and then pumping it in there. And it's like you're not getting the whole
They're getting
foods.
the full
And
spectrum.
even a lot of the whole foods aren't great. Like the non-organic, like tomatoes, like they're picked green, shipped with ethylene gases to turn them red. And so their nutritional content is much lower out the gate. And then like they slap like shellac or other shit on them to like make them shiny and last longer on the shelf. It's like that versus a vine ripened tomato that you can just easily grow in your front yard, basically anywhere in the US, depending on like, other than maybe Alaska. But I think even there, they have a good enough summer season that you can grow some tomatoes, just like little tiny ones or whatever. But
Shout
yeah,
out
there's
to anything gross. We harvested a bunch of tomatoes, made some tomato sauce, canned them all. Got a bunch of tomato sauce now, homemade.
nothing better, man. There's brands out there that tout like Rao's or Rao's homemade, and it is good for a commercial salt sauce. I think it's a little bit better than Ragu. Come at me, fight me, chat if you are a Ragu faithful or that's what you came up on. But nothing beats like how Spartan just did it. I bet you that's better than any can you're gonna buy. And I grew up next to Italian family right next door, and he grew his own tomatoes. My first job ever was shooting the BB gun to scare the squirrels. He had a little soda can up at the top, and you fucking shoot the soda can, and the squirrels would fucking go scurrying off the fence and run away. So, paid me like a nickel per shot just to scare the squirrels, and I had the most fun ever in the backyard over there. But in turn, had good cucumbers and tomatoes and homegrown produce from my neighbor that I grew up with, and they'd invite us over a few nights a week for pasta night. And his wife would make homemade pasta sauce with the tomatoes that he was growing in the backyard. And it taught me kind of from a young age that I can't eat commercial
No,
tomatoes. It's like a shit. Like if I get anywhere I go, if I order something, if it's a sandwich or burger, whatever, I just say no tomato because I know 99 out of 100 times it's going to be so watery, gross, and disgusting that it'll like make me gag. I can't stomach it. It's so much worse than what I'm used to, which is like a tomato can be crisp and juicy and delicious, but
it's like,
man,
yeah, it's like almost like it turns to commercial tomato sauce is almost like spiced ketchup compared to homegrown tomato made
some
tomato.
of it pretty much is. I mean, it's like a tomato paste extract, water, salts, like, it's like oils. Like it's not really actually even tomato sauce, like when you get down to what the ingredients of some of this stuff is. So, making it yourself is definitely the way to go. And I certainly miss that aspect of living next door. They were great neighbors. I hope they're doing well. And great people, just I
God, that
think
sounds
there's
like
something about
awesome
gardening.
neighbors. They probably wanted some weed, bro.
It,
They
it,
probably smelled you and they're like, when's he gonna hook us up with some weed? What is it? What we gotta do to impress this guy?
Oh man, I think unfortunately I think they might have been opposed to it just because the strong religious background and in my
Oh,
at
they're
that time
opposed to
where
the
we were
holy
at, it was
oil. They're opposed to the
very
holy
frowned
oil.
upon.
How
The
could they be
anointing thing,
opposed?
yeah, but
Yeah.
everybody comes from a different perspective in terms of how they interpret these texts and things like that. But
Oh, it's
personally, I
pretty
think
black and
the
white when it
history
says
shows
it's pretty black and white when it says I give you all seed-bearing plants, and last time I checked, cannabis is among them. So I don't know. That seems pretty black and white to me that it's
I'm
okay,
with you
got a
on
good
that.
guy.
I've quoted that exact verse to individuals who try to throw it at me from the other side. So I'm with you on that. And I think that there is an argument to be made, and there's other even deeper religiously capable individuals that know like really deep references and will make arguments that it has even a stronger role in a lot of these things. And for me personally, it is when I feel the most spiritual is when I'm using this plant. It's the only quote unquote drug that I use at all. I have no other intake of anything. I don't use alcohol or tobacco or I guess caffeine from on the rare occasion. I'll have a shot of espresso when I'm really a little tired from overworking myself. But other than that, it's just cannabis. And I will say, there are there's been times when I didn't feel much spirituality, and I think it was actually when I wasn't using for the 5 year gap. And I think it's harder when, to be honest, when I wasn't using it, I felt a lot more of like the depression of like a rat race feel of like, oh man, everybody's just grinding to fucking
Like there's
do
no hope.
XYZ to get a check. Yeah, it felt dismal, man. There was definitely like the existential bullshit started coming up, and then nihilistic kind of views were more relevant. But I think cannabis helped me, at least personally, dial that back and be like, you know what? Like even like there's been times where like like, oh, I'm in a simulation. I might as well have fun and like do the best I can in that simulation. Like if it was a video game, I'd want to be a character that's like scoring a lot of points. I'd want to be the one who's like fun to be used by the fucking person up above, because then like they don't want him to die because like you want to keep that one alive because he's like the one who's scoring all the points or doing all the fun shit or the entertaining shit. So I think it just gives you can find purpose in anything, even if it feels like there's purposelessness out there. And I've been on both sides of the fence, but I think it's more fun to take the approach of like everything's awesome versus everything sucks. Because if you think everything sucks, then you can just find a way to justify that. But if you think everything's awesome, you can start diving into even like the most random, benign bullshit. And then it was bullshit at one time, and then you're like, oh wow, it really is interesting. Like birding. I was never into birding for a long time, but now all these different birds I see around here, I'm like, that's a really fucking cool bird. That's a cool sound. That's a cool looking thing. Like, what the fuck is that? And I'll Google it, and I'm like, oh, I learned this, and that about it. I'm like, now I know. It's just like a little adds more
That's
color to your
yeah.
life.
Like interest is like a or curiosity is like a spark to passion. You're just gonna find something that you might become passionate about. You find something that you're passionate about and start doing that, you're gonna find purpose in life and you're gonna be happier. That's cannabis for me, but there's other things too, gardening and there's I like tabletop role playing game. I fucking love that shit. This is all these things that
I had a D&D game scheduled. It got pushed back, but I think you'll be
oh,
proud to know that I've started D&Ding with at least one of my clients.
that's super cool, dude. That's super cool. I like Pathfinder myself, but
It's
I'm
fun,
open
man.
to the other platforms as well. I want to address
I
real
think
quick
it's
before it scrolls off my screen real quick, and we'll get back to D&D. But Kyron J says, how do I get the Vortex beans? You can just shoot me an email, spartangrown@gmail.com, and I'll get you some. I have the Vortex F2s, but pretty much Vortex. But yeah, that's how you can get some Vortex beans for me. Shoot me an email.
on the F2 topic of when I made the Velvet Punch F2, and not all F2s are created equal, right? We're working with polyhybrids here. So the uniformity is going to be a little bit all over the place. What I found was there was almost uniformity from the F1 to F2 in the flavors and the highs. However, the bud structures and the flower structures and the leaf structures were not uniform. And so I think like if you're just like most people interested in like the high of Vortex going from F1 to F2, how Spartan did it with like multiple males and multiple females, it's not like he could have like added or subtracted too much in that process. So it's going to be pretty dang close to that pure F1. Like I even did a selection of just one male and one female at F1 of the Velvet Punch to make the F2.
Mhm.
But like my selection, it was so close to what like I found across like all three or five or however many females I ran that in the next generation, all of them smelled smoked. There was difference, like there was a little sawtooth variation in like 1 out of 16 of them. But aside from that, and like maybe some were a tighter nug structure or like a little more open bud structure versus the first one was maybe a little bit denser, the smells and flavors across the board were like almost uniform.
I love that. And that was kind of my hope, and that was my well, it's kind of open. I wanted to open it up a little bit too. That was another thing. It's like, that's why I used two males, two females, is I was like, I just want for one preservation, I want a bunch of seeds, and I got them. But I also wanted to like maybe open up Vortex because Vortex to me was pretty special. is one of those ones that was really fucking potent and on the sativa end of things. And I just wanted to see what was in those genetics, what was in there. Was there anything crazy, wild, or whatever? And that's why I did it. And I'm glad I did. And I went through the fucking time. It took a lot of time collecting all those seeds and the way I did it was crazy, but it got done, and I got a bunch of seeds, and they've all popped, and it seems like it, and I'm happy. So I got a bunch of them to go through, and a bunch more to pass up, and that was my goal. If anybody wanted Vortex, it's available. It's available to them. They can experience it like I did.
That's the way to go, man. And that's how I feel with these cuts. It's like I'm gonna try and get them to people as economically as possible, like maybe just cover shipping or whatever. I'm not gonna be selling them. I just want to get them out to people and have that be shared around because maybe somebody out there doesn't have access to GG4 or the Death Star cut from Ohio. So it's something that I could be in a way like I saw Kyle Cushman hold on to strawberry fucking cough
Tough.
for years, and he's like uh, just solely by doing that, he's a notable, respected member of the community for, and not to take anything else, but he's done other stuff as well. But that's like his biggest thing, and it wasn't even a strain that he originally created. He just held on to it. He knew it was really fire, and then passed it out, and allowed other people to work with it, like Subcool and others.
Yep.
And so it's still, a staple, and it's a one of the kind of colors that we can paint with in the breeding side of things because it's a very specific flavor that a lot of people are already familiar with from the food side of things and enjoy. So it's nice to be able to give people access to the genetics.
And it keeps those genetics alive, which is another important thing.
Because one person can only do it for so long, whether it's getting sick or vacation or power goes out or XYZ. There's 100 ways you can lose a genetic just mislabeling, right? They think that they took a cut, had it backed up, and then turns out they grow it, and it's like, I thought this was strawberry cough, and then it turns out it's Gorilla Glue. It's like, oh fuck, that's not strawberry cough, and then like now I don't have a copy of it, and so stuff like that does happen. We've all perhaps been there, and hopefully a reason to stay organized and double up on your labeling somehow. That's a way to potentially avoid those types of issues. However, I think if you're not working with too much, it can be something easy enough to manage. But I don't want to scare people out of trying to hang on to good stuff. But there's a lot of great reasons to keep on growing these older strains. They're tried and true. They're proven. It's like, well, you could risk it on the newest, hypest thing, right? But maybe that thing is gone next month, next year, whatever, or maybe people don't even want it anymore because they find out, oh, it's actually less potent or less flavorful or whatever than we thought. And maybe I just want the OG. Now I just want the chem or whatever.
It's cool to me too because I feel like that it's another way also getting these older generation cuts, these older generation genetics out there is I've already had a couple people reach back out to me with genetics that I've sent to them saying, "Hey, is it cool if I make a cross with this?" Or, "Hey, I accidentally left the light on and it, hermied on me. Is it cool if I keep those seeds?" It's like, hey, once I get those seeds to you, you do what you want with them, man. And actually, I encourage that because to me, that's another thing I'm thinking is it's like a way to inject that old genetic, the generations back that because everything's related, right? But to get that, it's almost like a gigantic back cross where you're injecting back into the at least the local, as far as United States goes or whatever, community of cannabis. So maybe we're bringing, a little bit of health back into things.
I think as we go, so goes the world. And at this point, I think the US is if not the leader, we're one of the top cannabis countries in terms of breeding, growing, production, all that. Although we're not legal federally, like Canada can waive that and say, hey, we can fly with it, we can ship it, blah, blah, blah. However, I think, and they have a lot of great breeders. I'm not trying to knock Canada, but I think that we're just a slightly larger market and we have a lot more people working on the same kind of battle for good. And I think it's the more the merrier, right? I want people in Africa doing it. I want people in Europe doing it. I want people in the US, Canada, Mexico, everywhere. I want everybody breeding and growing as much as possible. So it's a win ultimately to see more people getting into it. And but I just think that for the last, I don't know, decade, probably more, a lot of people have looked to the US for, strains like some of the top stuff, OG Kush, Chemdog, GG4. Those three are all from the US, from US breeders. And so, even when there's accidents in those cases, um, the fire is being found here. And not to say that it can't be found anywhere else. There's a lot of other great stuff. The UKG's is fire. Tao's bred with that, and like sub bred with that, and lots of people bred with it. So um,
There's a lot of
uh,
stuff in Afghanistan. There's a lot of all these land races and stuff from
and those are
everywhere
the
as well.
the giants that we're standing on the shoulders of because those are the building blocks before a strain even existed. Like back in the DJ Short, Colombian cross to Afghani kind of days, like there wasn't a strain name, right? Like those early days, it was more Wild West than it even is now, and it's still the Wild
Yeah.
West. Talk about regulation of diodes. Let's talk about there's no regulation of fucking genetics. You could call anything
Yeah.
anything. You could sell anything as anything. You could fucking I've got Blue Dream, White Widow, Black Widow, fucking GG4, Girl Scout cookies. Like they literally
I
just
got
copy paste every single strain and say that they have it.
I got whatever you're looking for. What are you looking for? Oh yeah,
They
I
have a
got that.
generic package with a label maker, and they could just slap a label onto it, stick their seeds in that package, and send it out to you. I mean, it's that simple.
Yeah.
It's a Mylar package with a plastic seed casing. Like,
But that's what I
it's
hope
not a
for. That's why I
complex
really hope for
industry.
federal legalization, honestly, because I feel like that will get sorted out pretty quick. Like the companies that do that will be come and go companies, and it's the companies that stick around and build a name for themselves of legitimacy. And how, why aren't we allowing? That's another thing that I wanted to bring. I'm bringing that up right now. Why the hell in all of these regulated states has it not been addressed to allow a commercial grow to directly market, even, like it was online, like you send it in the mail or something throughout the state, right, direct to customer. Why are they required to go through a dispensary and add costs to the consumer at the end? Just because you can collect more tax at the end? What's the point of that stupid shit? That's another thing we need to get addressed. Why are all these middlemen? Why do you have, like, here in the state of Michigan, they can't even transport it. You have to have, that's another license, a transporter that transports it from grow to, dispo, or grow to
From the
processor.
consumer standpoint, Cannabiotics in California did that for a little bit. You could just like go on their website if you lived in California and you
Uh-huh.
enter your ID or whatever. You could order it directly from them and it would just show up at your door like a delivery. But the way that they did that was they have the grow, then they own a distribution and own a delivery service, and then they do like a drop once a month or whatever, and just go around basically. So it's not like a everyday type thing. They would do like a once a month. You buy kind of a bulk package or just whatever it was. And but that was the most direct to from like farm to consumer that I could get from like the home side of I basically ordered it online or over however my wife actually did it, but it was different than like we didn't go through a dispensary or a delivery service. We just went directly through the brand or the grower in this case. So I think that's a winning model, and I think that should be the model because, like you're saying, I just watched a video about licensing and how licensing in all businesses a lot of the time, like he was like taking there's like the anarchy stance of like no licensing at all. Then there's like the you need licensing for stuff where like you might have bodily fluids if like you get like poked, stabbed, whatever.
Yeah,
And then like
cleanliness,
licensing
all
for
that
like
kind of stuff.
jobs, electrocuted, whatever. So it's like the dangerous and or things where people's like lives are on the line. But like, I thought my industry or cannabis or others were maybe unique in the fact that like licensing and regulation were burdensome on small or large businesses, really. Um, it's not unique to any really country or state industry. It's more part of it's just part of the game at this point, right? Like there's a little bit of grift or graft or excess bloat in every industry because somebody wrote, and it's usually in line of safety or protecting the children or whatever it is. And sometimes it really is like OSHA. I agree with like 99 out of 100 OSHA laws because I have videos of fails from our country and others where people get hurt on job sites because they weren't following the safety rules, and maybe they didn't know them or maybe they didn't care to follow them. However, as somebody who's been injured and gone through it, I know it fucking sucks, so I hate to see it. And I will say sometimes regulations are written in blood, and so if we can do stuff to make people safer or whatever, then great. But I also don't want to live in like a nanny state where everybody has to be regulated so much that like, oh, we need to be protected about everything. Like I can't have raw milk or I can't buy chicken eggs from my neighbor who has chickens. Like it needs to go through some regulatory process and they need to be washed and sanitized. It's like I think we need to have a little bit of freedom of choice and be able to choose if you want the raw eggs and the raw milk. You should be able to, if that's a risk, you should be able to take that risk. And I think it's just as risky to eat a lot of the shit at the supermarket that's deemed safe or generally deemed as safe. So there's a lot of stuff out there that's told to us is safe or healthy, and then years later we find out it's not so much so. But I think cannabis has always been the opposite of that because it always circles back around to like, oh damn, this is a really good medicine for like a lot of different things. So why don't we keep on using it and benefiting from it? And in the government's case, at least, taxing it and raising money off of it. I've seen, literally seen cities around here that were like Joe average city to like now they're like really upscale. It was like you could see the improve. Like they were the first one to say yes to legalizing cannabis, and the tax dollars flooded in. And they're like, "What do we do with all this extra money?
Yeah,
Let's
exactly.
beautify the city. Let's make the streets better. Let's make apartments more affordable. Like we'll subsidize shit. Like fuck it. Like we're gonna make murals everywhere and make it beautiful." I was like, "Holy shit!" It went from kind of like I said, podunk Joe average town to now it's like beautiful and like some would call it gentrification potentially, but I think the way that they did it was more tasteful and they weren't necessarily like tearing down old buildings. They were beautifying ones that were currently there and improving stuff that was there. But a lot of the old stuff is still around and they have like the classic homes and stuff like that. But it's a nice balance, but um, cannabis has in that case, proven that it can be a benefit to the community, even the non-users. I operate in circles outside of the cannabis space. In my job, working with special needs individuals, or I have interest in like hunting or firearms or whatever. And those spaces are very separate things because lots of regulations and reasons. So in those spaces, a lot of people are anti-cannabis. Some of them are like, it smells terrible. I hate the way it smells. It's the worst, like blah, blah, blah. And I'm just like, okay, but let's talk this through type thing, and I try to level with a lot of these people. And at the end of the day, most of them come down to like, it's a lot safer than a lot of other things. And we're really not the group that's bothering people. Most people just don't like the smell and or the idea of like kids having access to it. So I think if we can be respectful of those things as a community to the extent possible. Obviously, we have rights to like we can smoke outside, right? But you don't want to like walk up to somebody and like fucking blow it in their face, right? Like hang out in your little circle. It does carry or whatever, so maybe try and be mindful. But at the same time, I don't think we need to be like we've hid for so long that I get that like we want to come out of the shadows and at many times, especially like in the political stance, it's a political protest. If they're saying it's still illegal and everybody lights up in the square, they can't arrest all of us, right? Like thousands of us coming together and like the hash bash was and still is a great example. Whether or not I don't know if you guys go for permits or anything like that, but I think at this point it's just such a long-standing thing. It's like, what the heck are they going to do?
They do pull permits for that. Yeah, it's all organized and everything now.
So at this point, they're able to do it, quote unquote,
You can
above board.
still There's still a hell, I will say the biggest cannabis smoke cloud I've ever witnessed on multiple occasions has always been above the crowd at Hash Bash. So in a public space.
I love that. Like whether it's Hash Bash or like a reggae festival where like everybody lights up when a certain band comes on or a certain song comes on, and like you just instantly see above you. It literally becomes a fucking cloud. It's not like one plume of smoke. They all combine together and swirl together, and like there's only so much room for it to go if the air is not really blowing through there.
There's
And it's
some
just
full
like
spectrum right there, baby.
that's honestly, I do strongly believe, and so many people have experienced it firsthand. It's hard to deny at this point. The contact high, quote unquote, of going to a concert. Like people will go to like a Grateful Dead show or a reggae festival, non-smokers, right? And they're just hanging out in the audience. And like the next day, they're like, "Oh my God, I got the best sleep of my life." And I was like high as fuck last night, and just basically inhaling secondhand. Or I honestly think just the energy of being in that atmosphere, good music, good vibes, people having a good time. and dancing, moving around, having fun, good
There's
food, good
all
drinks, or
kinds of
whatever.
science to it, man. It's like how your heartbeat and everything starts to sync up to the rhythm of the music, all kinds of shit, man. So yeah, for sure, that's definitely a big special experience.
And I think it's a social lubricant to an extent for some people. It's like alcohol works that way to an extent for some people. Like I do think that dancing is a healthy thing to do and is a social thing to do. And like there's a great video of this guy who just like goes out and like solo dances. And by the end of the video, there's like hundreds of people that just start going crazy and are all dancing around with him. But he looked like the lone fool at the beginning, but by the end, everybody like couldn't wait to be there with him. And not to say that like we should all be fucking sheep and go join in every single crowd, but if you're in the right environment and it's something that you're there for, yeah, to have fun, everybody might have just felt a little, silly getting up and dancing around, but he fucking left it all on the line and like shirt off, like flailing around, not giving a single fuck. Had the best time of his life. And then so everybody else is like, fuck it, I'm gonna get up and move and shake. And even if I'm not, dancing with the stars or America's Got Talent quality, just moving your body. There's a term in like MySpace of working with uh, anybody, just physical work. Motion is the lotion. And obviously, too much, you'll wear yourself down. But if you're sore or if you're achy, sometimes the best thing to do is just like get up and move around, get your blood flowing a little bit, and move it, use it, stretch it. Don't just think, oh, I should pop a pill. My neck hurts. Like, have you tried bending over and touching your toes or leaning back and looking up and like bringing your chin to your chest and looking up, doing some shrugs or whatever? It's like sometimes if you just work it out a little, stretch it a little bit, move a little bit, we can, and even as big of a cannabis fan as I am, I don't want to use it to numb and ignore pain. If I have an injury, I want to know that I'm injured. I use it to be more self-aware. I want to feel it helps inflammation and it does reduce pain in a very positive. I think personally, it's the best, in my opinion, pain reliever that there is because there's no overdose risk and it's extremely effective for me and many, many others. However, I don't want people to mistake that for, hey, if you're feeling hurt, smoke a bunch of weed and pretend that you're not hurt. You know, maybe if you're hurt, you might have to go to a doctor. You might, if it's hurt for more than, my general rule is like, if you're hurting for more than 3 or 4 days and it's not getting better and it's getting worse, or it's staying as bad as it was, you might actually be injured. So you might want to get it checked out. And that's probably longer than some people would go. But I found because I exercise and sometimes I'll lift heavy shit and forget that I lifted heavy shit or did a bunch of physical activity. Um, so sometimes I'm just sore from the workout or whatever. Um, but you can fucking hurt yourself on doing little stuff like picking things up. And you might think, oh, I didn't really hurt myself. And then sure enough, you're hurt real bad and it's only getting worse. So make sure you stay on top of that stuff. And cannabis is lovely of a tool as it is for a medical treatment. It's not a cure all. If you slipped a disc or if you herniated a disc or, fractured a spine or something, like I got in a car accident, it was helping, but the little muscle relaxer they gave me on top of it when I went to the doctor was a huge benefit. It helped like unlock my neck and shoulder were like starting to really pin up and just I couldn't hardly move. And cannabis alone wasn't doing it. So I got some sort of something for 1 or 2 times and it helped me get back to where I needed to be. But yeah, it's important not to brush that stuff under the rug as much as we can
Well,
dial
yeah,
down the pain with.
cannabis is a medicine for sure, but it's not a cure all. It doesn't cure everything, and and it doesn't take away from other medicine. And a lot of times it helps magnify some of the other medicines. So it's like almost an extra benefit, like you're suggesting, to go get it checked out and get it looked at. Because if they get you on medication that's designed to give you some relief, having cannabis in your system a lot of times is going to make that even more effective and enhance that effect. So you might even get extra relief. So there's no reason to, suffer. If you're really truly suffering, there's no reason to really suffer just because you don't want to go to the doctor. I know that we can get caught in these mindsets, especially going down, it seems like on the organic side of things, to like really push back against, oh, that's big pharma. Well, they got big for a reason. They got big because they can still be pretty effective at, stopping you from bleeding, they can do a lot, a lot of good
Saves a
things.
lot of lives, undeniably, and like first
Yeah.
aid and medical treatment. Guess what? Big pharma, even when I went to like through college and they were teaching us about pharmaceuticals, one of the professors was honest enough to say, um, he put up like a pain reliever, and then he said, like, where does this come from? Like pharmaceutical or nature? And then somebody, like half of the class raised their hand for pharmaceutical, half the class or nature or whatever it was, and he's like, it's actually both. Because they actually take Tylenol, right? It comes from a tree. It starts at nature. They synthesize it down. They found the effective, for the most part, thing within it. Maybe you could go a full spectrum and find the tree that Tylenol uses or whatever for the acetaminophen base or whatever, but they've gotten to the point where they could probably just synthetically make it in the lab or whatever. But like it originally came from a natural product, right? And so almost all of this stuff, there is stuff that has been completely lab manufactured, but a huge foundation of it, even cannabis. I mean, look at like Marinol, Epidiolex, they're just cannabis-based pharmaceuticals. So, and back in the 30s, it was one of the heaviest sold pharmaceuticals. So, I think to me, it's fairly obvious that it's one of a wide tool set, right? Like if somebody has diabetes, they're not going to cure it with cannabis, right? They need insulin. Like there's obviously certain things that are required for certain conditions. Like uh, if I was completely anti-pharmaceutical at all, then like some people would suffer to the point of death or great bodily harm from not having access to much needed medications. And so I'm very thankful that those are available for those people that need them. And there's been times in my life where I needed certain things, and I see people go on and off certain things, and it in certain cases has great benefit, you know. So it's not all bad. Obviously, like you said, it didn't get big for no reason. I will say they stay big by kind of pulling up the ladder and messing around with regulations and doing back kind of door deals. So some of the stuff that we do hate them rightfully for um, is valid. So everybody out there is like, Jack and Spartan are big pharma shills. Like, no, that's not where we're coming from. But like he's saying, you don't have to suffer if you are truly injured, and there is something out there that can help you that is additional to cannabis. Because maybe it's not even like a super high dose. Like in my case, I took a some sort of muscle relaxer and it was the lower end of the dosage range. I said I didn't want any pain reliever, and they understood and worked with that. I told them I was using cannabis, and um, I used it for maybe one time or like a couple. I never even had to get it refilled, but just a couple times, and it helped me through. And I'm somebody who doesn't like to take a lot of time off work, so it minimized the amount of times I needed to go back and forth and getting in and out of doctors and prescription lines and things like that. So I'm grateful that the process worked for me in that case. I have seen it not work for people, and I've seen it work for people. So it's a, I think it's a something in the quiver. Medicine is a wide-ranging thing. There's from everything from acupuncture to chiropractic to big pharma and traditional Western medicine, Eastern medicine, Ayurvedic stuff. Do think like food, if you can, as much as you can be medicinal, and it was like one of the original medicines. So that is one that people often overlook, and I do try to treat things first with cannabis and good eating and staying hydrated and sleeping. However, if none of that stuff is helping, there's additional things out there.
I think anything that heals somebody is medicine, even if it's a placebo. So I will call anything that heals somebody a medicine. So even if it's power of the mind doing that, I'm still on board with it, man. Because the end
I'm a
result,
believer like music even.
for sure.
Like somebody
Frequency.
could listen to a song and if the frequency of like the waves hitting them, or even just the words connecting to them, taking you out of a mood, bringing you to a better mental space, giving you a new way of thinking about things, or a more positive, happier, just a brighter outlook when maybe you're feeling really down and out, or even it might just be that negative thing that is going with your vibe, but it teaches you, hey,
Oh,
somebody else is there and feeling that way. I can relate. Like, damn, I've been down. Like maybe they're down even worse, or maybe they're not down as bad as me, but like I can relate to just the feeling of what they're going through, even if you haven't gone directly through it. So it's certainly powerful. There's so many different things. I think laughter is medicine. Yoga can be medicine, like you're saying. All these things that have the power to heal. It doesn't necessarily have to be like to by modern standards medicine, but I'm a fan of all of them. You know, implore all of them.
yeah.
Laugh, love, hug, fucking be social, be part of your community, love your friends, family, etc., and keep on growing most of all things. But I just noticed we have 1 minute left, and I never opened up the panel. We were just chatting it up and having a good time. We only got a couple questions, but we talked about something that was on the current events kind of thing. And I know that you work with GML, so I'm glad that we went through that and got to clear that up and give at least our community, because I know some people only listen to like one show or they're not necessarily keeping up with all the different social medias and stuff. So I'm glad that you guys were able to kind of clarify, or at least you yourself were able to clarify a little bit on behalf of GML. And I'm glad I got more informed on the whole situation. But it's 6 o'clock, so I'm going to pass it over to Spartan Grown for any final thoughts and shout outs before we wrap it up.
Yeah, I just want to thank everybody, all of our fans, everybody that watches the show, comes back and watches every week with us. I love doing the show. It's crazy to think as you were just saying that we just sat here, just the two of us, and we're both worried, like, oh shit, we got to do a whole show by ourselves. How's it going to be? And fuck, we couldn't even let anybody get a word in edgewise. So shout out to you, Jack, man. I love hanging out with you every week, and I think you do a great job to keep conversation going and flowing. And like I always say, man, we got to protect home grow rights. That's the thing that I think we all can agree on. And we can facilitate that by getting, like you're talking about, getting clones out, by me getting some seeds out, and everybody else listening doing the same thing. And it's one big, happy, awesome community that we can overgrow. Uh, much love to everybody out there and keep growing.
Absolutely. Leading by example. And that's the best way to do it. And overgrowing the planet, getting the genetics out there, getting the information out there. I really enjoy this every week and look forward to coming back and seeing you all next week. Y'all know where to find me. My logo is right there, Jack_Greenstock on X, formerly known as Twitter, where I'll be posting this tomorrow as well as all the podcasts. And with all that being said, keep on growing, y'all, and catch you next week. Cheers.